building a gaming PC for $300. Is it possible? So one of the most common questions that I'm asked is, how much does it cost to build a gaming PC? And well, that really depends. It's very common for someone to say that $1,000 on something like this, or you could go for a 3060, which you can pick these up for around $300. Typically, whenever people are asking how much it costs, they're not really asking what price they need to shoot for. They're really asking, how cheap can it be done at? And I started thinking about this, and I was wondering, how cheap could we actually go and still have a good gaming experience? But that also leads me to think, what kind of parts do we need? And believe it or not, you can get the majority of the parts you need pretty cheap, or sometimes even free. For instance, it's not actually that uncommon to have computers from old businesses that they just want to throw them out. These are all old surplus computers. After a certain time, they just kind of chuck them in the dumpster. And a lot of times you can pick up old machines like these for pretty cheap or even free, if you just call and ask the companies or the businesses that have them laying around. Now, of course, by no means am I telling you that you need to go rummage through a dumpster or go beg companies to see if they have any IT stuff just laying around. In fact, what I'm going to be showing you in this video are prices that you can find shopping on Amazon. I'm going to be looking up these prices as if I'm buying them brand new, and our target is going to be building a gaming PC for $300. Is it possible? Don't know. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, I'm going to be honest. When I started off with this idea, I didn't really brainstorm much about everything that goes into building a computer. I wasn't going to include the monitor or speakers or anything else in the build. However, if there's money left over, I really feel like that we should include that in there, and I'm going to try my best to keep it under $300. So that is my goal. How am I going to get the most for the cheapest possible amount? And not only that, get it in a way that is repeatable, so you could actually go and buy this stuff brand new as well. The first thing I thought of was, let's get a computer that is pre-built. You see, with a pre-built machine, you don't really have to worry about processor or the motherboard or anything like that, because it's already there. But what you do need to worry about is what kind of machine you're buying. For what I decided to go with was this machine right here. It is a Dell Windows 7 Optiplex 7010. And the reason why I chose to do this is because with Windows 7 Pro, which is what this came with, you can actually use that same key to upgrade to Windows 10 and even Windows 11. So you basically get a free upgrade to the latest operating system with this machine. And DDR3 is what comes on it. Perfectly fine RAM that you can buy online, and it'll perform a little bit slower than DDR4, but it's still serviceable. You can actually get it for pretty cheap too. So this right here, let's go ahead and slap that price tag on the screen, and let's go ahead and start researching some stuff that we can put in this beast of a machine. When you go price shopping for a computer, what you really want to look for is things that are obviously within your price range, but more importantly, you need to narrow down what you want to focus on. I went ahead and chose a computer that was pre-built because that already knocked out the motherboard, it knocked out the processor, as well as the power supply. So that's three things that I no longer have to worry about. I could stick with the default RAM that came with it, which is 4 gigs, but that's not going to be enough. I was able to pick up 16 gigs of DDR3, which is DDR3 1600 speed. I mean, it's not fast. as far as DDR5 is concerned, but it's basically a very small step below the slowest DDR4. So we're pretty good. It's not going to be the quickest, but hey, for what we want, and this is 15 bucks. You can't beat it. As far as the hard drive, with the standard hard drive that's in it, that ain't going to cut it. We're going to be going with an SSD. Typically, SSDs are pretty expensive. However, you can get a cheaper SSD by going with an M2 drive and just using a PCIe adapter, which is what I did decide to do. This right here, you're looking at around $6. It's less than 10 bucks. This is not a bad deal at all. Really basic M2 drive that we were getting, 20 bucks. $26, somewhere around there, will land you a really good, fast, solid state drive for this old machine. Now, the next big thing that we want to look at is the graphics card. Now, graphics cards are where you can really sink a lot of money. Like the example that I gave you before, you could easily spend $2,000 on the best high-end graphics card there is, or you can dial it back some, which, if we're only going to be spending $300 for the entire build, we're going to have to. I'm going to be going with a graphics card that is very easily accessible, and you can even buy one new within our price range, and that is going to be AMD 580. Now, there's many different brands of this. In fact, I currently have two of them. I have one right back there, the Pulse, and then I also have this one. They're basically the same card, and they're also pretty cheap. They're an 8 gig graphics card from AMD. It's about 10 years old at this point, but the reason I decided to go with that card is because the driver support that you can download directly from AMD will allow you to underclock and overclock the cards to match your specifications. And the reason why this is important, the model of computer that I decided to go with comes with a power supply that caps out at 240 watts. You can tweak this graphics card to use less power, which is what we're going to do. This graphics card is probably going to be the most expensive thing on our list, and it's going to be at around $90. You can pick this up for around 90 bucks. That currently puts us at around $216 for a computer build that should be playing games. However, that also does not include a keyboard or a mouse or a monitor or speakers or headphones or anything like that. But we definitely do need a keyboard and mouse. Now, a keyboard and a mouse setup is not actually that bad of a price. You can get a bundle pack where you get a brand new keyboard and mouse for around $15 on Amazon. However, if you want to upgrade it, you can get a very nice gaming mouse like the one I have here for around $10 to $15. You can even get these on sale for less than that. A nice mechanical keyboard for around $30, but I'm not spending it on this build. In fact, I'm going to go as cheap as I can because I'm going to try and get everything that I need. This is not going to happen. Instead, we're just going to have a simple $14 combo mouse keyboard, because frankly, that's all you really need. As far as the monitor goes, I was actually able to pick up this display for around $60. Again, this is one that you're just going to shop around Amazon for. You can get a really good gaming monitor that is actually bigger than this, and you can actually get a 27-inch for just shy of $100, and they have much better refresh rates than this. It really depends on what you want to spend your money on. Now, with all that together, let's go ahead and see if I purchased the correct parts to assemble this together. Now, if you've been around this channel for any length of time, then you probably know that we don't do sponsorships, and there's a reason for that. The sponsorships that we've tried in the past have always ended the same way, where the companies reach out to me, they ask me to review a product, and they ask me to give my honest opinion, and I always respond back with, I'm going to be 100% transparent and tell exactly what I like and what I don't like about it. And the companies usually get back with me and say they're not interested at that point. I don't feel right promoting products that I don't stand behind. You see, the products that we do support on here are products that I make. I run a software company, and that's how I can afford to do the YouTube content that you see here. I only promote my products, the products that I know that if you run into an issue with, I can fix. And now, back to your video. Now, one of the first mistakes that a lot of people make when they're building a computer is actually not buying the correct parts. A lot of times when people buy a computer, they don't realize that certain processors will only go on certain boards and certain memory will only go in those boards as well. They just buy parts without really thinking. Well, luckily for us, half of that work is done for us because we decided to do a pre-built that we have right here. Now, this is one that I have already went in to test some RAM on. These are 2 gig sticks. This was what it originally came with, and there was 8 gigs in it, and we're going to be upgrading that to 16 gigs, which we have right here. Whenever you're building a computer, make sure you always line up the RAM sticks in correct orientation. You'll see there's a little notch right there in the RAM, so there's only one way that this RAM stick can actually go in, and since we're only using 2, then we are going to be putting it in DIMM slot 1 and 2, which is the 2 white that we have there. We're just going to line it up and snap it in place. Okay, next, we are going to be installing the graphics card. And I just realized something. This graphics card is not going to fit because this is a full-size graphics card and this is a low-profile computer. The difference is this right here. That graphics card is not going to fit in a spot that size. Well, we will go ahead and address that in a bit. Now, let's get the hard drive in there. As I mentioned, I had a PCIe to M2 adapter, which I have right here, and it will slide into this spot right there. Now, because this is a SATA drive, I will actually need to put in the SSD over here to a SATA port. And I'm going to go ahead and put that right here. So there's actually 2 things that I have forgotten. The power that goes into the graphics card that we need is an 8-pin. However, we don't have a free 8-pin. Very easily pick up a adapter for it, but that is going to run us some more money. I think I have an idea. What are you doing? Here, let me help you with that. There. Isn't this nicer? Now let's make sure that this doesn't happen again. You can use G-Tickets to organize all of your Google Forms. Keep all of them in a nice tidy database that will then notify you if there's a new form that comes up. G-Tickets will automatically check and update it for you. Use G-Tickets. Clear up your space and calendar with how much time you'll save. Okay, so the cable adapter for the graphics card, that's not an issue. Not an issue at all. Actually, I found one right here on Amazon for $7, and I'm sure you could probably get it for cheaper if you wanted to shop around and look for other things. We got that figured out, and it's within the budget, so even if we tag on that $7, we are still under the $300 budget with a monitor and keyboard and everything else that we would need for this. We can't actually use the case that we had, and I had really banked on using that case because cases can range anywhere from $50 all the way up to hundreds of dollars depending on what kind of case you want to get. We can either spend an extra $20 on a riser. This end plugs into the PCIe slot and this one plugs into the graphics card, and then what we do is we snake this around the edge of the case, and then we put the graphics card here, and the graphics card is just mounted on the outside of the case, which is not a good option. I mean, it's very easy to get that bumped, and then the whole thing could just crash, and it would not be a good setup. And then I started thinking, some of the coolest cases that you could have are open. So why don't we try and get a case that's purposefully open? Now, test benches are not really computer cases. They do look really cool, though. So that's why I decided to go with it, because while, yeah, it's going to get dirty, it's going to get dusty, test benches are a great option for a case because they're only $18, $19, something around there, and you can get them pretty cheap. You can get them brand new from Amazon, and I bought that one for $19. But before I get to what I actually paid for this, let's make sure that it's actually performing the way that we expect it and want it to. If you're going to be building a computer for $300 or less, chances are you already have some expectation that you're probably not going to be playing the top end games. However, that being said, the limitation that we were having on this computer that we built was not from the graphics card or the memory. In fact, the limitation came from the processor, because the processor was an i3 that was running at around 3 gigahertz. The graphics card did fine, and in fact I ran multiple tests, in fact benchmark tests and different games and things like that, and it ran perfectly fine. And now let's get to the final price that I ended up paying. Now, I've told you that you can build this exact same computer for around $330. I would not actually recommend you do this, because I chose that specific tower and that specific case because it was available to me. So while you could buy these computer parts for $330, I would actually recommend that you do a little bit more research and buy a newer computer that is still cheaper than $100. That might actually come with a full or mid-tower case that would save you $20, and also a better processor, possibly even a better power supply that could supply more power so you wouldn't have to underclock your graphics card. Now for my total. The computer tower and case itself I actually got for $0. The RAM I also had for free. Next is the graphics card. I actually got it for free because I picked up that graphics card and it had a broken fan, and I was able to super glue it back in place. Worked perfectly fine. Next was a 250 gig M2 drive. I actually found mine for $25, so really I paid more than what you could pick it up for. The keyboard that I chose to use I had left over from another build, so no cost in that. I did end up buying the test bench because I did not have a case to fit the computer, so the test bench is $19. I also paid $19. The monitor that I chose, I had it donated to me, and it was entirely free. So with all that together, the final cost of buying that exact machine that I just had brand new and putting it together was $330. The price that I actually paid was $50. And to be perfectly honest, I could actually cut that down to close to $30 just by not having the test bench. Or if I wanted to go even cheaper than that, I could have this be entirely free just from not buying the M2 drive. If you wanted to stick with the standard hard drive that's in it, absolutely you can. But it just makes things load a little bit quicker whenever you have a solid state as opposed to a spinning disk drive. If you like this episode, consider subscribing. And yes, I did actually say episode. We're trying out large format videos on here to see how well they perform, and I already have a few ideas for upcoming episodes. The next one that we currently have filmed, we're taking this $300 computer and we're cooling it in different ways than the stock cooler. You don't want to miss it.